Vegans Retro Remix.
Please welcome Liberal Member of Parliament for Beaches East York, Nathaniel Erskine-Smith.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Hi, Nathaniel. So, like I said before, do you prefer your big boy name Nathaniel, or you want to go by Nate?
Either is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem like I'm your mom or something, calling you Nathaniel.
I played baseball my whole life, and in high school, when you're playing sports, they usually go by your last name. And
That's a long one.
But Erskine-Smith is too complicated,
Yeah.
so I quickly became Nate.
Yeah. So, what attracted you to politics, and in particular, the Liberal Party?
So I was attracted to politics more generally. I studied politics and law for a long time, 8 years of my life, and mainly political philosophy and constitutional law. And as a lawyer, I saw the ability to make a difference in people's lives in a positive way, but you're always making a difference in, for a client, for a number of clients, but in a very small, significant in their lives, but in a small way, oftentimes in the broader scheme of things. And so I viewed politics as a way to make the biggest difference I think we can as a society in people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I think people are frustrated by politicians, people don't trust politics. I still think government and politics remains the biggest way we can make a difference in other people's lives in a positive way, or the lives of animals. And then I don't even remember how many years ago, but my wife, she was doing nutrition at George Brown, and she became a chef, and she's now a vegan chef. And
It's
so
kind of handy.
Yeah,
not a bad thing.
I'm very lucky. No question there. Lucky in many ways.
I don't hear any complaints about that. Yeah.
No, and I'm a lucky guinea pig in many ways when she's doing recipe development. And so, but yeah, I mean, I would say 9 years ago, we talked about becoming vegan instead of vegetarian, and had been largely eating that way anyway. And
well, you're raising your little guy McKinley that way.
Yeah, we're raising him.
Yeah,
vegan,
he's like
course,
from day
That's awesome.
one.
Yeah,
well,
exactly,
before day one, right?
Yeah, so in the same way I was raised vegetarian, but we are raising him vegan instead.
What are your feelings on the new Canadian food guide?
So I think this was a huge debate, and my position was, and I was glad to see our health minister adopt this position as well, that regardless of people's views of various economic interests, that this information should be science-based. This is information that we're going to put into schools, and we're going to be teaching our kids about what they should be eating for their health. And this should not be subject to lobbying. This should not be subject to the influence because a particular economic sector wants to earn profits.
Oh yeah, whoever has the deepest pocket
this should be about the health of our
That's
kids
not fair.
and the health of our society. And so I was very happy to see the focus on science-based, plant-based diets. So that's an outrageous idea that we would have information to educate our kids about how they ought to eat and how they ought to live their lives, and it's sponsored by organizations that want to profit from those kids.
Exactly.
So we have hopefully gotten away from that with the food guide in a serious way, and that will set a path of food policy that is based on science and based on evidence. So it's not a straight path in Canadian politics in the same way that it is in American politics, maybe. I mean, you have very deep pockets that can influence American politics because they don't have spending limits, and their Supreme Court has really gotten in the way of election finance laws. We have strong election finance laws in Canada such that you can't contribute as a corporation, you can't contribute as a union, and you can only contribute up to $1,600 as a maximum limit per individual. So that
even Alec and I could pool our
right.
millions, our hundreds.
So in the Canadian context, we have significantly eliminated, not completely eliminated, but significantly eliminated the ability for money to influence outcomes. But you still have, and I'll use the example of when I introduced an animal protection bill, I had advocates line up on my side, but they did not have the resources, the organization, and the connections that the chicken farmers of Canada had, who issued a statement to their members.
It was really a David and Goliath
Right,
scenario.
I mean, you had one organization. There were lots of organizations. I could talk about the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, the Cattlemen's Association, the beef farmers and pork producers, and every organization has their own, or every group has their own sort of organization and lobby group. But the chicken farmers alone bragged about lobbying 80 members of Parliament against the piece of legislation. So if you have multiple organizations that are all doing that same thing, the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, there are so many. So I kind of thought this was the no-brainer, low-hanging fruit kind of bill. And there was misinformation, it was very new and early in Parliament. I didn't have relationships as a new member of Parliament where I didn't have a level of trust, not only with Conservatives who were the principal
your
opponents,
own party.
but even with my, my own certain members of my own, my own caucus who I
Yeah.
didn't know, and if they're getting information from the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, and then I'm saying I'm the vegan from Toronto going. But I mean, I think it fundamentally comes down to the fact that we are all humans and we will react negatively. If constituents and advocates come to us in a confrontational kind of way, if they come to us without having built a bridge and built a relationship to begin with, members of Parliament, like anyone, they're human and they're probably not going to listen in the same way as they otherwise would. So my advice is build constructive relationships. My advice is forget the attack on Twitter and instead go meet the member of Parliament and be the educator. Go and establish a positive relationship and explain why you care about this issue and try to connect on that level, and don't just make it a one-off meeting where you say I demand this or I'm not going to vote for you. It's this is why I care so much about it. I want you to care about it too, and is it okay if I provide you regular updates on this issue going forward? And 6 months later, a year later, whatever makes the most sense, you ask for another meeting and you bring a friend with you, another constituent, and you continue that conversation, and that conversation evolves. And if you are partisan in any way or have that inclination, join a riding association, get involved on a campaign, contribute in some way, without question.
Get familiar to that person.
Become familiar to that person and have a constructive, positive relationship. Have a relationship.
Yeah, that
because
helps.
if you just
It's a
show
good
up
start.
and you say, I'm a constituent, I demand this, or my vote depends on it, yeah, okay, I'm going to listen, but I'm not going to listen in the same way or with the same seriousness if it's someone that I trust and there's a relationship built, and where I know that you care about it, you've got the facts because you've educated me about it. And if I'm being really frank, I think the biggest differences will come from support for clean meat and plant-based foods.
Were you happy about the decriminalization of marijuana?
Cannabis legalization, we are way further ahead than, if you asked me in 2010 whether we would be legalizing cannabis in my lifetime, I would have been maybe, I don't know. And then I got to be a parliamentarian who not only voted for it but was able to, I hope, be a strong advocate in that conversation and help influence that conversation. So yeah, I mean, it's a success, and I hope that the rest of the world looks to us, and I hope it's one of many steps towards more just drug policy more broadly, and that we stop treating drug use as a problematic crime and we start treating it as a health issue.
Yes, that's true.
amazing.
Well, I hope you didn't celebrate by hotboxing Justin Trudeau in his office or something. Anyway, that's another
not yet.
conversation.
Not yet.
Calling all vegans, Retro Remix.